I'm Wendy Desabé from St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands. I currently live in Miami, or wherever my passport lands me. I love supporting others in learning how to live their best lives.
I'm Derek Lumpkins, a Boston-born globetrotter and photographer with the soul of a polyglot.
As lifelong friends, we're constantly talking about history, the arts, missed opportunities, and the road less traveled.
Welcome to Things They Don't Teach Us,
a podcast about life's tips, tricks, and insights.
Hey, Wendy.
Hello, Derek.
What's going on?
Not much, brother, not much.
Really? You always have something going on.
It's another chilly day in Miami.
Oh,
this morning
I half of the world is probably like, really?
It was 62.
62, so that's like what, 14 in Celsius for our non-American friends?
Oh, yeah, it was frigid.
I'm sure. I'm sure the polar bears were making their commute through whatever that major street is down there, just wandering through.
Yes, they were. That and the iguanas falling off the trees, because that's what happens. Yeah, when it gets too cold, they can't maintain their body heat, so they just like plop.
Okay.
Bless their skinny hearts. But I am excited for today's topic.
This was one you brought up. This was a good idea. I like this one.
Go ahead, say it.
The things they don't teach us about handling rejection.
Yes.
And, you know, when this topic came up, I think it was just the time of the year that it came up. The people I was thinking about in terms of handling, the person I was thinking about in terms of handling rejection was Donald Trump. He did not handle rejection. He did not acknowledge that, 70 plus million people rejected him. He was like, whatever it was stolen from me. That was the first person that came to mind. Of course, rejection comes in all forms, to all people, in all ways.
Yes.
But that seemed to be the most obvious, most visible form of rejection in person who was rejected, that I was like, it probably doesn't have a place in this conversation. Maybe it does, but it just, kind of came to mind.
Yes, and then you suggested your friend and our friend, actually, Christina Tippi Cogen.
Yeah, so she does a lot in terms of somewhat in the mental health space, but also just in terms of the psychology space. And, there was some conversation that she and I had. I don't know if it was over dinner or just through a walk at some point, where I was like, she'd be a really good person to talk to, because she brings the wealth of experience and the wealth of knowledge, but also just a very casual way of describing things in a way that is accessible to a lot of people. So I thought, she'd be interesting to talk to.
Well, with her background, she's perfect.
Yeah. Do you want to do a quick intro?
Yes, and on that, let me just go into it. So Christina Tippi Cogen is a local Hawaii native who began her military career as an enlisted member in both the Army and Air Force. I did not know you could do that. Serving as a rare minority female in the fields of aviation, logistics, and small arms weapons training. Tippi, you're going to be on the boat with me the apocalypse ever happens. Tippi went on to complete her business degree from Hawaii Pacific University and a master's in theology from Fuller Theological Seminary, where she received her calling and commission as an Army airborne chaplain. After a 20-year career serving in Afghanistan, you go girl, Tippi transitioned to the Department of Veteran Affairs. Tippi proves there is no rest in retirement as she works to complete her doctorate in somatic psychology with plans to assist students, organizations, ministries, and the military in developing healthier leaders through interactive workshops and retreats. Woohoo! Bring her on board. Hey!
Welcome.
Aloha. How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
Good. Yeah, thanks for having me.
No, first off, I didn't know you could do two services simultaneously. Or did you do one together? I mean, that's another conversation altogether. But as a woman in the military, I just think you and someone in theology, you understand rejection on all sides.
Oh, you have to. Being a minority in the U.S. Army and a female, yeah, you better be ready for some rejection for sure. But yes, you can. To answer your question, you can cross branches, which is not impossible, obviously, but it is complicated, and yet the timing has to be right.
Mhm. Wow.
Yeah.
Just wow.
Certain
I'm blown.
components.
Mind blown.
Okay, you learned something new today, right? Things they don't teach you.
Like I said, if the
Right
apocalypse
out the
comes,
gate.
you're on my boat. You're on my boat.
Right. Oh, the apocalypse. That's what you said. I couldn't really hear what you said.
No, if the
Okay.
apocalypse happens and the zombies are roaming the streets, you're the kind of girl I want next to me.
Absolutely.
I can't shoot a gun. I can't do any of that.
She's already told me I'm not allowed. She's like, I'm already like out
Yeah,
with the
Derek talked
zombies
about
left in the streets.
Derek, I don't know if you know how to start a campfire, so I don't know.
I mean, I know how to grow food. I know how to grow food. I could fish. There's things I could do to, like, you know, I could find a shelter. I could build shelter. There's things I can do.
Derek, going to the pet store and buying a goldfish does not count as fishing. So, no.
Well, if that one goldfish is what's saving you from starvation, then it's all mine. I'm not sharing with you.
I love it. I love it. You guys are hilarious.
All right, but let's delve into this. Go ahead, Dee.
Yes. Go ahead, Wendy. You go ahead.
No, you first. You first.
All right. So, you know, we just very casually threw out the president-elect, who will probably be the president by the time, you know, this gets aired. And his experience was being rejected. So he was rejected, you know, the most public one, which was, you know, going to court and being told, you know, wait, what am I talking about? No, not going to court. With him, not winning the election. And there were so many things that happened with him, I kind of got lost. So he lost the election, and, you know, 70 plus million people says, okay, we don't want you. And he handled that poorly in so many ways, and he rallied too many people around. So, you know, when that was the most obvious and most public form of someone being rejected that I think a lot of us could sort of point to and say, okay, this is an example of it. But, you know, as Wendy says, you have a lot of experience in terms of, like, being in the military, being in the theological world, etc., around seeing and experiencing rejection. Could you describe for us, like, how would you define healthy dealing with rejection in a healthy way?
How would I define dealing with rejection in a healthy way?
Is there such a thing?
I think no, there really is. I would say that it requires reflection. That is the first and foremost thing when handling rejection, because we're all going to face it at some point. But what I tend to see, especially as someone who does counseling and coaching, is that people do not want to sit in the wounded ego period at all. So they quickly will move on very fast to recovery and putting on the makeup and finding a girlfriend or a boyfriend or going on a date or not spending any time journaling, kind of really just pacing yourself.
Rejection can come from different parts of your life, because you can get rejection from your job, a job interview you went on, and you thought, I am the best candidate for this, and they didn't take you. Then you have the personal ones where the boyfriend, the girlfriend, or, you know, whatever, is not said no. That girl you asked for, the pretty girl who's like, hey, let's go on a date, and she's like, yeah, no, thank you. There's that, and then, you know, there's just also interpersonal with your friendship circles.
Absolutely. I mean, you're getting rejected incessantly throughout the day, for sure, and it comes in all forms and styles. And I guess the easier you can handle the smaller levels of rejection, the more prepared you will be for the bigger things.
So then we all get rejected at some point by someone somewhere, but we don't always have healthy role models for how to deal with that rejection. So there's potentially a gap between what you experience and where you want to be. So how does one identify a healthy role model? Because it's easy to find the unhealthy ones. That's very, very easy. So how do you identify the unhealthy ones and say, okay, this is what will be helpful for me?
Yes, that's going to be primarily through value-based processing. And so what that means is that, again, people need to get in the habit of sitting down and being silent and really taking inventory of what their value systems and beliefs are, because that will guide you to the type of help or support that you're needing. And those are the reflections that you're looking for in the real world. So let's say I have a belief that God is important to me, and I value honesty and integrity, and I want someone that's authentic. I don't want a mentor that's putting on a facade on social media. Like, I want to be able to know them on a deep level, but also that they have boundaries. And so unless you know that about yourself and what you want and what you're craving, then it's going to be very hard. I see a lot of young adults, especially young professionals that I work with, who are so caught up in assimilating or curating a certain type of lifestyle that they're just missing the mark on really checking in on what their values are and where they want to go. Like, I can see them kind of going in this circle, and it's like, well, you haven't really sat down and got in touch with yourself, so you're just emulating. And we kind of all do that in our early 20s and 30s. We're still trying to figure out who we are as an adult, what we look like. You get it.
But do you, because I personally feel that, I mean, we've all been rejected. I've been rejected. I personally look at rejection as, I've learned to use as a growth tool. So to me, if I get rejected, let's say in a job, that means I got to work harder. What did I do wrong in the interview? Where can I balance things out? What could I have said in the interview process that have made me a better candidate? Friends, I met girls who I'm like, oh my God, I like this girl. I would love to be good friends with her. And then she's like, yeah, no, I'm not interested. You take some bruise, and that, in love, we've all been rejected. Who hasn't been? So I won't go down that rabbit hole.
We can. I mean, the platonic rejection, the non-romantic rejections can be just as stingy, if that's a word, as the ones that are romantic. Because I mean, I'm here to tell you, I've had personally, just within the last few months, rejection with family. And it's been kind of eye-opening. Now, if I didn't have like my values and my beliefs and my strengths and understand when people are wounded, that the EQ level kind of goes down. So without that insight, I think you can kind of go nuts in dealing with people who are unhealthy, because the way they reject can be so just rough.
And can you just define what EQ is for people who may not know what that is?
Yeah, like me.
Oh, I'm sorry. So thank you. That's emotion quotient, and that is your emotional intelligence, is what the common lay term is. So that's your ability to handle and manage emotions, and your ability to communicate correctly, handle your temper, all of these things that deal with social skills. That's your emotional quotient.
Ooh.
Yes.
So I was thinking about, maybe I'm thinking about this in a incorrect way, so please correct me where I might go wrong. But if this is our center, if this is where we want to be in terms of emotional stability or emotional intelligence, if this is where we are in terms of like we're not handling rejection, where we're going over the line, over the top, like we're just fighting everything.
Yeah.
Can we go this way where we're too accommodating? We become a doormat. Like,
Ooh.
we're like, oh yes, I accept this, I accept this, I accept this. We're just too accommodating. How is this possible? And how does someone sort of get back to the middle this way?
To middle? Well, I don't know give me a scenario where someone is rejected and they're a doormat, because I'm having a hard time like wrapping that personally, because
Sure, and it probably is going to be situational, because I'm trying to come up with a scenario that would make sense for the three of us, but also for people who are watching.
That's true. I'm sorry.
That if, let's
because
say someone grows up, go ahead.
Okay, I can give you a second to think about it, because I can also look at it from, the other side, which is sometimes we are a little too, from the person who's delivering the rejection. Let me clarify the position that I'm about to take. So one side, we're looking at the person being rejected. The other side is the person that is the rejector, the rejector. Now, sometimes the rejector will just send you a quick little message and they're done. And you're like, so then you can go too far on the other side of like, that was super just callous and uncaring. And then there's some who will go the extra mile in terms of, we want to sit down with you, I'll give you all the details.
Mm.
And there's some in the middle who are like, okay, I don't want all the details, but I just need the truth, and I just want to be somewhere in the middle ground. This goes back to knowing what you want and what's important to you. Some don't want that type of closure. But where were you going to go?
So we've all seen that movie where the protagonist starts off in this, like there might be this blowhard, there might be someone who like controls a lot of wealth or controls a lot of people, and then they have this stupendous downfall, whether they lose all their money or they lose their authority, they lose something, they have this big downfall, and then they are everybody's punching bag. So like, the garbage gets thrown out on them, or they get splashed in the rain, or people take advantage of them, they take advantage of their sudden good nature, their sudden downfall, and they take it. They're like, yes, you're so right, yes, I'm so bad, oh, how I can't believe I was like this before, just do whatever you need to do to me. Like they overcorrect, they overcompensate. Again, I'm not a doctor, I say this in many episodes, I'm not a doctor, but just my understanding is that people overcompensate in such a way that they are allowing too much to be put upon them rather than standing up for themselves. That they're saying, okay, I had this rejection, and now all I am worthy of is rejection.
I like that. That you see that typically in what's known as like people pleasing, the ones that just want to try to be the amicable party. They want to be Switzerland in all occasions, where everybody's got to get along. The peacemakers fall into this category as well, where they will take the burden of the injury 100%. And I had a girlfriend tell me one time, and I'll never forget her words. I was mulling over, I don't know if it was rejection or something, but it was something that was like taxing my brain. And she said, stop internalizing it. And I just, I had to step back on like, you know what? Yeah, this isn't my, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't my stuff. This is someone else's stuff. And although I want to be, the person that falls on my sword and fall on it elegantly at times, you have to be the person that's like, hell no, I'm not. Take it out, throw it on the ground. Yeah. I just mentioned the part with my family. I just saw it for what it was. I'm like, they're unhealthy. So
yeah,
you can't expect people that aren't used to communicating and who have been rejected and who are wounded and who are coming from that place, that anytime you have a conversation, it's taken as an insult or an injury, because that's the position of their heart. And so you're constantly in this battle. And if you can't see people in the whole picture, and people are like, just forgive them. And it's like, you're missing you've got to see them first before you can forgive them, if that makes sense.
So what would you recommend for someone who is going to do rejection? Because we're talking about people receiving rejection mostly. And there's also the other side where you're in an unhealthy situation, not necessarily unhealthy, but you don't want to be in that situation. And you just want to tell someone, politely, because, there's ghosting, which is my personal favorite.
Bring back the ghost.
I will definitely just like tap out on you. Which is probably not the most effective thing. Stop shaking your head, Derek. And there's other ways to do it, but it's just I'm not like I just want to leave it alone.
Well, it's interesting, because you and I keep having this thing about ghosting. Like we keep talking about it, we keep thinking, oh, let's have a conversation around it, but we can't quite wrap our heads around how to have that conversation. But for me, I am so against ghosting. I'm so against it because I feel like if the two people have that much of a closeness of a relationship, whether they're friends or they're romantic partners or whatever, and it's healthy enough, like if you're not being beat by the person, they're not like slapping you around,
no,
and you're still having a conversation, you should at least be like, you know what, this just isn't working. This just isn't working, and let's just
there's that, and then there's, let's say you go out and you meet someone, be it romantic or platonic, whatever it is, and you're really not interested in that situation going further than that moment, but that person insists on trying to like have something going forward. Is it appropriate then to ghost?
But again, if like you are close enough with that person to have the conversation, where they can say to you, I'm really interested in you. Why can't you just be, my thinking is why not just be the adult and say, like, I'm just not there with you.
Well,
I think it
Christina,
depends
I
on.
mean, Christina,
But
please jump in,
yes.
please.
No, I think it depends on the scenario of how you handle it, because there's going to be occasions, I think, where you have to adjust your approach to the person that you're getting ready to reject, right? It can't always be about what you want. I think a lot of people enter it in like, I just want to make this clean and fast and painless, and I don't have time to go into anything, and you get this a lot with some of the opposite sex to females. They're little like, no one wants to sit down and have that discussion, right? So, but
Uncomfortable.
then go ahead.
It's uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable. So knowing who your audience is one, because for especially women, you can get yourself in a very tight situation on how you reject someone if you don't know how they're going to handle their emotions or their ego. So
Mhm.
that would be my first thing, is make sure you know who you're about to reject and what they can handle. And then just tailor it to that and be as direct as possible. A lot of times you'll get fence straddling, where trying to keep their options open, maybe have have a person on the side and start seeing other people, and you kind of already know that it's not really going to go anywhere. It's not going to be
Yeah.
anything serious, but you don't want to lose that. This is where a lot of sexes, both men and women, get into trouble, because they don't want to let go of the branch before they swing to the next one. And that's what you have to do in the jungle. You have to let go of the vine. Your whole it's a trust game, baby. Like you're in the game. You better swing with all might and
Woo, I
power,
like that.
because you gotta let go of it. And you know what happens when you try to hold on? I know you guys have never been in the military, but we've had a lot of like monkey bar training. And you know what happens when you hold on to two rings at the same time?
You can't move anywhere.
You can't move anywhere, and you could theoretically be ripped in half. So that's also what happens in a relationship when you get to that rejection stage, and it's now someone has found out about it. You weren't forthcoming, and now your secret's out, and
Yeah.
now you're having a worse conversation. So let's just be mature and have the direct conversation. Take someone
Mm.
out to dinner. Don't do it in like the car. Like put a little, I don't know,
Oh, you
respect on
can't
it.
text
Like,
and say I'm done.
no, yeah, depending on the situation, because sometimes you don't need to be back in someone's presence. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about amicable. We're talking about like we want to try to at least be friends.
You want to have
Right?
some humanity. You want to put some humanity back into it.
Yes. I think that's what we're losing in society, is that decency and humanity. And I think that's where we took a turn for the worse in society, because now you have people who are in public who don't have any respect for anyone around them. They're checked out. They're doing whatever they want. They're like, I don't care. It's only about me. And it's like, no, when you step out into public, and this is all back into like having respect for people, other people,
Mhm.
you have just made a civic agreement to be considerate for everybody, to look out. So you need to look out for me, and I need to look out for you, and I need to be courteous of you, and you vice versa. But it's this, I don't care, like it's like, and we take the same approach with rejection. It's like, I don't care, that's their problem. And it's like, wow, yeah, we've
Point.
really lost our way.
So, all right, I want to ask this question. I'm asking for a friend. So, I know about there were two people who were in a situationship,
Okay.
and one person was kind of like you said, he was trying to swing from branch to branch, and the other person was like, I need you to tell me that we're done, because that's how I move on. I need to
Yeah,
hear
yeah.
it, because that's how I process it. I need you to say we're done, rather than, oh, I'm still thinking about it, but it's not
Uh,
no. You know, those kinds of things.
yeah.
What kind of I don't know if you've covered this in like the studies that you've done, but like for that person who needs to hear the rejection, like is there a term for that, and or like what would you say about that person?
Oh my goodness. So that's just called closure, plain and simple. It's not no there's no super term about it. Sometimes it can go from being wanting closure to it being a tactic for control. So you have to know, am I being controlling? Am I just, can I share a story with you really fast?
Sure.
So I went, and so I'm with an agency for my apartment. And a lot of times if you get locked out, you have to go get the key. So I had to pay my rent at the office because I don't have a Spanish bank. So I paid my rent and they end up, my key was dead. And so I said, oh, I need to renew my key. Well, we forgot during the payment. I get all the way back to my house. I tap the thing and I'm like, dang. And it's, of course, I think I went at 5. So they're now closing. No one's really answering. I'm outside. Now, before I left, I cracked my door because I said, this company, we won't get into that. But I cracked my door. Someone opened the door downstairs. I made my way up. I knocked on the apartment. However, the company still thinks I'm outside. So I'm texting them like, hey, you guys forgot to renew my key, right? And this will come back to rejection. And I was keeping them on the line of like, you have a moral obligation to make sure you follow through, because as far as you know, I didn't have the safety net of leaving my door open. So I could still be outside, right? And I wanted them to get that message of, but then I had to catch myself. I had to catch myself and go, why am I trying to punish people? What you got in? Okay, so bringing that back to the conversation, sometimes we get into this situation where we are just punishing people. Like, I just want you to tell me. I just want you to, like, just pause, bite your lip, sit and reflect, because it's going to tell you the truth. When you're still and you're quiet, you already know the answer and you don't need to hear it. And I've always wanted to be in a situation where I didn't play myself, right? And moving forward in 2025, I'm no longer going to give anyone the opportunity to, what's the word? I want to say this in the right way. Have that power over me. When I see that something's wrong, it's done. We're done. I'm not putting it in your court. Out of respect for myself, you can correct me later if I'm wrong, but as for me and my household, I'm going to take care of myself first, because you're clearly not, because the first thing you should have did was have that conversation with me, because we're both not blind, dumb, or deaf, right? Like or however the saying is.
But
We
people
know
do
something.
that.
Absolutely, because it's a hard,
Instead of saying, you know what, this relationship's not working for me, I'm moving on to the next thing, or we need to separate ourselves so we can both move on to the next thing. They're like you said, hang on to one side. Each has a hand on something. He has a hand on something, and basically they do enough damage. So you're the one who says, you know what, we're done. That way they can feel better about themselves, because if something ever happens in the future, they can say, well, no, you broke up with me. I didn't break up with you.
Oh,
Even though
absolutely.
I did all the things so you could break up with me, I never said the words, we're finished.
But going back to that, I do think that people do also need to be accountable in saying, yes, I just need to be honest here, and holding someone accountable. There's nothing wrong with that. So hear me when I say, don't take it to the extreme. We're talking about these extremes, right? The extreme is like, I'm out of here, try to have those conversations early. But then when you know the writing is on the wall, that's where you hold it accountable. Okay, like, let's sit down and have a conversation, and you feel like this tension. Okay, I'm out. We're not dancing. We're not. No one has time to dance at this level at this stage, right?
Hey.
And if you can't do it, I will pull the trigger, because I'm that person. I will pull it for you.
So what would you say people could learn from being rejected?
Oh my goodness. So there's a technique that I love to use in my soul work, and it's called reflection. And rejection is the fastest way to see your reflection. So leading up to your rejection, your defenses, everyone has them, right? Like these are your natural survival. You don't have to have trauma. It'll kick in. Your survival instincts will kick in, and you will start to see telltale signs of if you're anxious attached, if you're anxious avoidant, if you are completely detached. There's so many attachment styles. We don't have time to get into those, but they sound exactly how they are. either you're avoiding and you're still attached, but you're kind of avoiding that conversation, the situation. Maybe
Yeah.
you want to be in a long-term relationship, all that stuff. And I forgot where I was going, but um,
You mentioned soul work.
soul work, reflections. Yes, thank you. I appreciate you. See, get on these tangents. But that rejection is the fastest way to see your reflection. And that leading up to the rejection, you will be able to see your attachment style and who you are and how you handle. Am I someone that's going to be? So I'm basically talking about observation and experience, right? How have I handled rejection in the past? This goes back to the reflection.
Yeah.
All of your life story and how you've handled things and how you handle things afterwards will tell you everything that you need to know about yourself. And that's the ugly part. And this is why people put on makeup and put on clothes and they go out and they find a boyfriend, because the ugly part is I didn't handle that well. I actually was the cause of that breakup, or I
Yeah.
didn't do everything that I need to, anyway, you get it.
Self-reflection is something that's very, very hard to do, because it's very hard to hold the mirror up to your own face and say that you are the monster, if you will.
Yeah.
Although
Oh,
there's
yeah.
others want to be the monster, they want that, which is also interesting.
Well, Christina,
Yes.
we are respectful of your time today. We really appreciate you coming on and talking about this. And I like to close with the question, since, we're here in our luxurious years, what is a thing that you wish you had learned earlier on about rejection, how to handle it?
I would have to say I wish someone taught me how to handle rejection, meaning going back to the emotional intelligence. I bought this book that I saw on Instagram. I think it was by Dr. Muriel Bouquet. I think it is Bouquet. And it was adults of emotionally unintelligent parents or something,
Yeah. Okay.
unemotionally intelligent or something. Parents, I'm botching it. I'm so sorry. But I love the book because it definitely will show you like how your parents kind of will let you down in a lot of basic skills that you need
Yeah.
and how to move forward with that. So I wish I had that book earlier, but I wish that I also had people that could handle their emotions so that they could teach me about rejection
Yeah.
and teach
It's
me
not
about my
What else?
self-worth.
Yeah, something happens to you and your parents just, dust it off. Man up. Just
Oh, yeah.
brush your shoulders up and keep moving. But there's a
Mhm.
process to deal with rejection, even having your own little personal pity party.
Even
Right.
having your own yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what
It,
you're making me think about, Wendy, now is just the way generations deal with rejection differently. Because when I think about my grandparents, they were just kind of like, oh, that's just the way it was.
Yeah.
And even with my mom's generation, they were kind of like, that's the way it was, but brush it off. Like my grandparents would be like, that's the way it was, don't talk about it. Whereas
Hmm.
with my, the baby boom generation, like that's the way it is. We'll just have to brush it off and keep it moving. But I feel like once we get to
mm,
sort of like Gen X and millennials, we're kind of like, that doesn't have to be the way it was, but I don't really know how to make it better. I feel like there's some progress that's happened, but I don't know that we have necessarily gotten to a point where it's healthy progress. Because again, this is where we disagree. Ghosting, once texting people and breaking up by text and all that stuff became a thing. I'm like, this is not good. This is just not good.
yeah.
Yeah, but no one sits you down when you're like, whatever age and says to you when you're like, you know, 10 or something, and you like that little girl or boy in school, you're like, oh my God, I like Billy, I like Mandy, but they don't like me back. Boo! You're crying in your cereal. No one sits you down and says to you, well, you've been rejected. Let's talk about this and how to process these emotions. More than likely get, oh, for God's sake, just move on.
Oh my goodness, yeah. In BIPOC communities, like parents, are you kidding? We didn't get the Cosby breakdown on like how did your day go and how did you feel and like, how are you gonna make better moves? Like there was none of that. So you miss it a lot. But I did want to correct the book because I had two authors in mind. So Dr. Muriel Bouquet wrote Break the Cycle, and I love that's a great book too. The one that I was mentioning is from Dr. Lindsay Gibson, and it's Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. How to Heal from Distant, Rejecting, or Self-Involved Parents. That book put me on, and it was si magnifique and opening my
A
eyes
little
on my
stocking stuffer or a Christmas present / birthday present for the teenagers in your life or young people in your life.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
it for those? Is it for that group, or is it just, you know? Is it, what age group would you say it's for?
It's for adults.
20-something as adults.
No, yeah.
So actually, well, let's bring this together. So Wendy mentioned, the little kids and how they got broken up with in elementary school, and you're mentioning this book for older people. Is there something that's appropriate for younger ages in terms of talking about and teaching rejection?
No, I don't. I'm not really too familiar with the book on rejection off the top of my head.
Well, it
For
doesn't have to
you,
be a book, but like a 12-step process for 12-year-olds or something. I don't know, just something where, like, something that's age appropriate for some 12-year-old in your life.
You could write one and call it Billy pushed me off the seesaw.
oh right, rejection. She's
Okay,
like, I
we'll
don't
never
know.
go
No,
into education.
right. It's like, thanks for that. Thanks for that. No, off the top of my head, I'm sorry, I don't know anything for just specifically on rejection. No, but I can definitely find something for you, and we could add it to get you some
Sure. I mean, if you
resources
if you have
in the
time,
link.
there's no rush. And
Yeah.
I'm sure any teachers, any school teachers who are watching will probably send us a note being like, okay, this is what not to
Yeah.
do, and this is what you could do.
Oh,
Because if you look
absolutely,
at it when
absolutely.
you're younger, I think it helps you with adulthood. I mean, I know so many people. I mean, we've all heard the nightmare stories of that girl or guy who's rejected someone and then the person comes back to haunt them. Can we talk about boiling bunnies? Stuff like that. Oh yeah, come on, we've all seen that
What?
movie.
Boiling bunnies?
You've never seen that movie? Come on.
I never heard
Yeah,
of
Glenn
that
she's talking.
movie.
She's
Taylor,
talking about Fatal Attraction.
Oh, okay.
she was rejected. She didn't like it, so she boiled his
Okay.
bunny. Come on,
She
Okay.
boiled his bunny
That's so
you're not
in
that.
abstract.
his
That is
in his
so
own
abstract.
house.
Yeah, I mean, but it's just she didn't understand how to take the rejection.
I mean, there's so
Yeah,
many movies
well,
like that. Single white female. You're talking
Yes.
about Fatal Attraction. I mean, there's so many movies like that.
Yep. There's a whole channel on TV called there's Lifetime, there's Hallmark, there's God knows, I'm sure I'm missing a few, all
Max.
snapped, all dealing with some form of rejection where people didn't take it well and they just did stuff.
Mm-hmm.
because it hurts. Rejection
Yeah.
hurts. It's
Yeah.
True.
we're not taught to sit with rejection. We're not taught to sit with people who have been rejected very much. It's because it's not a cool thing to do.
Yeah. Well, this was certainly enlightening, I will say.
Awesome.
And again, part of what I said earlier stands true. Like, I like how you take some of these more complicated or internal dialogues and internal or even interpersonal concepts and just make them a lot more accessible and applicable to our daily lives. So I just want to
Welcome.
thank you for doing that, and also
Yeah.
thank you for showing up for us today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm glad we got this on the books. It was so much fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank
And
you.
I'm sure we will be having more conversations with you.
I
Yeah.
hope so.
And
Call me
yeah,
up anytime.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that. And for those of you who are listening and watching, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any questions, feel free to send us questions by email or on whatever platform you're watching on. And we will look forward to seeing you the next time on Things They Don't Teach Us. Take care, everyone.